So I wanted to do another video where I might not even play like an actual dungeon on this one, but I wanted to talk a bit about representation in games. So if that's not your bag, just bail out now and I'll judge you later. But especially Darkest Dungeon, I feel is better than most, though still not quite perfect. Like let's just go through my roster a bit, for example. It's Man-at-Arms. He's clearly not white. That is not a white skin color. Now, you can change his coloration a bit, but there's an option to, make him black. That looks like a very much like an African black sort of skin tone. And I appreciate that, have a bit of racial representation. And just, he's got kind of a broad body type, big and stocky. Makes sense. Diversity in men's body types has never really been an issue. It's more diversity in women's body types that becomes an issue. The Plague Doctor, very subtly feminine. You can kind of see the outline of breasts. They've got kind of wide hips and slightly narrower shoulders, although they wear the shoulder pads. It kind of amplifies that. But what I appreciate about the Plague Doctor's design is you can kind of tell it's a woman, but it's not over exaggerated. It's not, there's no boob window. That's, their outfit isn't skimpy. They look like what a plague doctor, like what an adventurer who uses chemicals and knives would probably wear. Lots of leather, sort of robe, skirt thing, mask, shoulder pads, and gloves. That is a practical outfit and communicates what they're about. That's the big thing. Like, that's the real reason why lack of diversity in female character designs is a problem, is because you got the Man-at-Arms. Everything about him says, I am a fighter, I am a soldier, I am going to stand here and take your punishment and hit you with this mace. I am tough, I am strong, I am the wall against which the enemy breaks. Just by looking at him. And, if they put the Plague Doctor in, leather bikini and a plague mask, you wouldn't really have gotten, well, maybe the plague mask might have helped, but you really wouldn't have gotten as much about their character. Because you look at this character, you get kind of a, I am ready to do stuff, I'm kind of sneaky, with the sword, with the knife pointing backwards. It looks like a bit like a sword because it's so huge. Got the grenade in one hand. They've got this sort of stoic, I am ready for battle, but not quite in the same way as the Man-at-Arms, if you get what I'm saying. They look they're very upright, they're sort of leaning forward. It's a very strong and assertive stance and design. Speaking of strong and assertive, the Hellion. The Hellion design is, alright, it's not bad by video game standards by any means. I love the big belt. I love the high collar and the long coat. The cleavage, I think, is a bit much. I'll let it slide a bit because the Hellion as a class is supposed to be less about defense and more about offense, so it makes a bit of sense that she wouldn't be as focused on defense. She doesn't wear a lot of armor, she's more about hitting things with the big freaking axe, which that is a big freaking axe. And her stance communicates kind of a resting readiness. I've got the axe on the shoulder, ready to use it. I kind of should do I should play at some point so I can show the combat stances. But this person looks confident and ready, Also, the face paint is kind of a cool touch. Also, this is another character where you can change their skin tone to represent a variety of ethnicities, which I really appreciate. Even as a white cis man, I do get kind of bored of only seeing white protagonists, and I'm sure people who aren't white probably appreciate that they can have a party with non-white protagonists. The Houndmaster, this one I don't actually have a whole lot to say about. I mean, they do also have a selection of ethnicities, which is nice. But again, it's a male design. It's a good design. You know, it's the fact that the dog is kind of front and center really sells it. Plus, they also wear the leather armor and the scarf, and they have the little epaulets. They kind of give you that sense of this is a sheriff type, some sort of a lawman. And I think that's good design. Okay, the occultist is one of those things I'm not sure if I'm qualified to speak on, but because they definitely have a Middle Eastern look to them with the turban and the facial hair, the curved dagger, which I'm not sure exactly. I don't know. It feels like it might be a little bit problematic, but I don't know. It is a welcome break from the standard sort of Western, Harry Potter type wizard look. And I don't know. It's one of those things that I really feel like it's not my place to say whether it's, good representation or not. Because this is pretty clearly meant to be someone of Middle Eastern descent. And, they have all these sort of evil powers, so kind of a little bit problematic there, I think. Which is a bit unfortunate, but, it's the way things go. I suppose, alright, if I really wanted to try and justify it, I could say that, well, in H.P. Lovecraft mythology, the Necronomicon was written by I can't remember the fictional author's name, but somebody of Middle Eastern descent. So I don't know if you are a person of color or from the Middle East. Let me know what you think of the occultist in Darkest Dungeon. I don't know what the best thing to say is. It is interesting to me that this is one of the characters that you can change their skin tone a little bit, but not really to the... Like, you can't make this person really look white. I don't know, I guess he looks a little bit white there, but not really. Very tan. Which is interesting. You can't change their skin tone, though, which is, something. But yeah, no matter what, they always look kind of Middle Eastern. The Crusader, it's a knight. It's a good knight. It's a very, well-designed knight. The character designs in this, are good at their job. I'm definitely not going to, disagree with that. Not much to say about him. There's no skin showing, so there's not really a case for, custom ethnicities. So yeah, not much to say about the knight. It's a good knight. The Highwaymen, again, very good design. I appreciate the range of skin tones. I actually, for some reason, I thought there weren't as many classes that you could actually change the skin tones on. I'm glad to see that there's actually more than I originally knew about. So yeah, got that. The Leper. The Leper is another one that I'm not totally sure on. I mean, leprosy isn't really a thing that we deal with on a daily basis in the modern world. I realize that it still exists, but not nearly to the extent that it did before a lot of modern medicinal advances. I do feel like the idea of having the leper as this sort of martyr type, because a lot of his abilities revolve around, just taking hits, taking pain, suffering damage, and just kind of powering through it. And it's it's a really interesting concept of a character, but I don't know. Part of me feels like it's slightly ableist in that, this person is a leper and so consigns themselves to this incredibly dangerous and likely fatal profession as sort of a, as part of kind of a martyr complex. Which I'm not sure is entirely healthy, but, I mean, it is what it is. You only get to see their chin, and they always look kind of white, no matter what color scheme they're in. So there's that. I mean, that might be bone. I'm not sure. Because in the art, it doesn't look like bone there. It's just, you know, skin. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, yeah, leprosy isn't really a thing that we deal with a lot, but disability is, and as kind of the lone or one of the only characters representing somebody with a disability, because I'm pretty sure leprosy would count. I don't know. Part of me likes it, part of me isn't sure. I'll let, you know, people with disabilities make the final judgment call on that. I do think just from a kind of story standpoint, it is a really interesting idea for a character, this sort of warrior, poet, philosopher type. Because that's one thing I do really love about the leper, is just their voice stabs and dialogue, and how they have this sort of artistic view of the world, probably because of, you know, their unique point of view, because, you know, life-threatening disease. I'm pretty sure leprosy is life-threatening. It's not pleasant, I'll tell you that much. Now here's another design I really love. Grave Robber. Very clearly feminine, but not exaggerated or really exploitatively drawn. It's like she's wearing boots, pants, big belt, shirt, coat, gloves, hat. You know, that is a totally practical outfit. She's got a knife, she's got a pick, she's got darts, she's pretty badass. And she's got long hair, but it's not like, you know, princess hair. It's just, you know, she has longish hair. It's like shoulder length, really. Might go a little bit further down her back, but I don't think so. And it's like, that's a good design, because you can see what they're about. You know, they have this sort of, I'm not sure exactly how to describe it, but kind of a, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of a weathered elegance, because, you know, it was a nice jacket. You know, they've got a bit of a cravat here. You know, it's kind of a fancy hat. You know, it's like, you can tell this person is part of society, but sort of set aside, because, you know, the patches on her clothes and just the general dowdiness of the colors to a certain extent. Okay, maybe it's just that color scheme. But they give you this idea, they communicate well the idea of a grave robber, you know, somebody who is sort of seen as an outcast, but still kind of embraces their status as, you know, part of society. Also, big knife. And, like, backpack, sort of. I don't know. No, that's just coat. I don't know where I got the backpack idea from. But yeah, good design. I like this design. The Abomination. I'm not sure if it's good to draw any sort of parallels to disability or mental illness with this character. I'm not sure if that was intended at all. And, you know, I'm not going to put words in the developers' mouths. Especially since the Abomination, if I recall correctly, was a class designed or aided in design by a Kickstarter backer. So, but ultimately, as kind of somebody who has suffered a lot and is still trying to contribute, I think it's a good character, because it's like, yeah, he's got the brand on his head for being an abomination, with which I do dig the whole design of, you know, the half shaved head with the brand on it and the chains pinning his arm to his chest. And yeah, I'm just gonna say I really like this design. I really think that the whole look of him is really well done. Really communicates his character, because he's got this kind of downcast look. You know, he's pulling the cloak over his shoulder. He's clearly trying to hide, you know, his mutated limbs. as best he can. He doesn't have any shoes, doesn't really have much in the way of clothes besides these raggedy pants and chains and this cloak. And and they do have multiple skin tones. That's pretty cool. Yeah, another good design. Not sure what it says for representation, but good design. Okay, here's one of the ones that I'm kind of conflicted on, because Arbalest, definitely woman of color. She has natural hair. All of her color schemes, definitely a woman of color. You can't whitewash her, really. I mean, this is, I think, the palest she gets, and that's still, that's, a light-skinned black person, dark-skinned black person. I like the fact that she is wearing all this armor. She's actually wearing almost a similar gauntlet to the Crusader. She's got this big old crossbow. She's got these big armored boots. She's got, Victorian pantaloons, which are kind of awesome. The only thing I don't like is this right here. That is some boob plate going on. And I don't know. As designs go, it's pretty good because, again, she's not like willowy or thin. She is a big, stocky woman. This is definitely somebody who sees a lot of action. This is somebody who, gets in fights and wins. And she's definitely not designed to be, sexy, but boob plate. Come on, guys. Don't need the boob plate. If I was going to download a mod for this game, it would be getting rid of boob plate. Speaking of boob plate, the Vestal, very similar sort of situation. She wears robes and armor, plenty of armor. She's definitely a bit thinner than the Arbalest, but, diversity in body types. You can have a couple of thin women. She has a couple of color sets. But again, boob plate a little bit going on. But also not really designed to be sexy. So, I don't know. It's a bit of a mixed bag. I don't like boob plate. I hate boob plate, but otherwise it's a really good design. I like that big mace. It's like, yeah, I got a big mace. And the book helps communicate, the whole religious aspect. Also, hoods with plate armor has always just been kind of an aesthetic appeal of mine. You will find that out if I ever do a Dark Souls 3 Let's Play on this. The Jester I really dig. Here's one of the things I like about the game in general is they don't frequently I realize this may just be a matter of the game's not really set up to, but they don't ever really refer to the characters explicitly by one gender or the other. They don't really call anybody he or she very often. Although I think with the Jester, when you recruit them, the narrator will say he will be laughing too at the end. So I guess they kind of confirm it, but this design is kind of androgynous. It's a skinny sort of guy looking thing. Their chest is pretty much obscured by their whatever that is. I don't know the name of that garment. Motley. The mask implies a very angular sort of face. Also the hat. I love the hat. I just love the hat. This is just a good character design I really like, and I like that it's kind of androgynous. There's no skin showing, so there's no really any sort of racial representation there, but there's also no. It's not explicitly any race or gender, and I kind of like that about the Jester. We got, and the Antiquarian. This is another one kind of like the Occultist. It doesn't explicitly say that the Antiquarian is supposed to be Romani. But you can kind of see where they are sort of implying that, though, just in the way some of the clothes are. I don't know. I do have Romani friends. I may have to ask them their thoughts about it. I do appreciate that the character can be multiple ethnicities. And the design itself, like, again, definitely female, wearing a dress. Actually, maybe not definitely female, but, feminine features. Presents as female. No big boobs, no big ass, just, nomad woman wearing traditional garb that happens to be multi-layered dress type thing. So yeah, and that actually kind of brings me to the Nomad Wagon, which it's one of those things that, like I said, I am not Romani, so I don't really get to say whether it's good or not. But for a sort of fantasy, because this is basically a fantasy. Sure, why not? Right on. But this is basically a fantasy setting. I mean, it is sort of ostensibly in a medieval European world, but they never, it's not in England 1430. It's just in this sort of, kind of timeless, locationless place. I mean, the fact that we have knights in full armor alongside people with guns tells you that, the game is not above an anachronism or two. So it makes me kind of wonder where the nomads fit in, and whether this is still relying on stereotypes, or if it's sort of... I'm trying to sort my thoughts here, because they never use the G word, which is a slur, so I won't say it. I'm guessing since I'm talking about Romani, most of you probably know what it is. But they never use that to refer to the nomads. They don't use Romani either. They just call them the nomads. Which is, accurate for what they're supposed to be. And I mean, just the imagery is a bit, it is stereotypy. But I don't feel like it's reinforcing negative stereotypes, because they never really, imply that the nomads are untrustworthy. I mean, when the half-price talismans event happens, he says that their generosity is short-lived, which, I don't know, maybe that's a little bit negative. I guess just to sum up, I appreciate that they don't use a slur to describe the nomads. I feel like it's safer of them to not explicitly say Romani either, because these aren't Romani. These are a fictional fantasy culture that exists to sell trinkets in a game. So it'd be kind of rude to use the actual the people's name. That's really about all I have. Like I said, Darkest Dungeon, I feel, is better than a lot of games in terms of representation. I like the fact that a good 45% of the character classes are women, or at least obvious, or at least present as women. I appreciate that basically none of the women are designed explicitly to be sexy or attractive. That they do prioritize communicating about the character over, making a character that is, pretty to look at, or at least pretty to look at for a presumed heterosexual male gaze. And I appreciate that there's at least a bit of racial diversity. I always feel like there could be more, but the fact that you can change a lot of the characters to be non-white is appreciated. Like, let's just do an experiment. How much of my party can I make of color? Okay, the leper we really can't. It's, I don't know, it's tan. Not really sure what to make of that. I mean, well, really, the paler skin with black hair, that could be somebody of Latin descent or Hispanic. So yeah, I mean, you got a good amount of racial diversity. So I guess, just to sum up, Darkest Dungeon, I feel, takes a lot of positive steps. I don't think it's perfect in the representation department, but then no game is. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about that for a bit. I may actually do, if I get some sort of video editing, I may actually do an episode on just, you know, character design and model design in, you know, the various combat poses and like attack animations, but that would be very difficult and annoying the way I have it now. Maybe I'll just, you know, offer more commentary on that when I'm actually playing for the next one. Thank you all for joining me on this little tangent. I hope I didn't bore too many of you. I will see you all in the next video I make. Thank you. Bye-bye.